Hey everyone, welcome back to KT Sessions. In today's video, we are diving into one of the most powerful feature of Power Automate Desktop, data table actions. If you have ever worked with the structured data in automation, you know how crucial it is to handle it efficiently. In this tutorial, I'll guide you step by step through working with data tables in Power Automate Desktop and show you how to perform common actions on them. Let's get started. Before we jump into actions, let's take a moment to understand what a data table is. In Power Automate Desktop, a data table is a structured collection of data that is organized in rows and columns, similar to a spreadsheet or a database table. It is used to store and manage multiple values at once, making it a powerful tool when dealing with repetitive tasks or complex data sets. So let me create a new flow, data tables. The first thing you'll need is a data table. So let's start by creating one. When we go to this actions pane, and here we can see the first action or the first group, which is variables. When we expand this variables group, we can see this data table group. When we expand this data table group, we can see all the actions of the data table. So first we drag the create new data table action into our flow. This action allows us to define the columns for our data table and add them one by one, and also we can add the rows in our data table. For example, let's create a new data table and create some columns in it. You can see new table, and this is the name of the data table, We can rename it student table. And now, like when we use variables, we can assign a value to a variable. Similarly, we can define our data table. So I will click on edit, and here we can see columns, and these are the rows. If I want to add the rows, I will click on this plus icon. It will add new rows, you can see. And if I want to add columns, I can click on this plus icon. It will add new columns. Now I want to create a student table. So I will rename this column 1 to name. The second column will be age, and the third column will be marks. Alright. Similarly, you can add more columns and you can add more rows. It all depends upon your requirements, but mostly in RPA, we don't create such type of tables. We generally get the Excel data into a data table. We get the data of SQL tables into data table, and we use that data. We don't create these type of tables. Okay. Generally, we read the data from the another applications or websites, and we manipulate that data. In next video, we will see how can we get the data from Excel into a data table. So now see this, and if we want to delete the column, we can right click on it and we can select delete column, and we have other options as well, clear content, select all cells. So I need only 3 columns in my table and 2 rows, and in these rows we can add the data as well. For example, if I want to get data, so we can add the data in this table. Now I will click on save, and here you can see we have 2 rows, 3 columns, and I will click on save. So we have successfully created our student table. When I double click on it, so let me run the flow. So here you can see 2 rows, 3 columns under flow variable, and when we double click on it, we can see this table, and this is the extra column for the index You can see we have two rows, and these are index or the row number. And now I want to insert one more row in this. So what I can do is I can either go to this action again and I can click on edit and add a new row, or we have one action for this as well, insert row into data table. So here we need to select our data table. I want to add the rows in my student table, and the location I want to add the rows into at the end of the data table or at a particular index. So if I select end of the index, then end of the table, then it will add the row at the end, means that will become our third row. And if we want to make it our first row or second row, so we can select the row index, means before row index 2, before row index 1, because row index starts with 0, so we have two rows. So I want to add it before 1, means it will add the row at 0th index, means at the first index. And new value, here you need to select the data row variable or a list variable, and make sure the number of columns in data row is equals to the number of columns in your data table. Okay. As of now, we don't have any data row column or data row variable, so we are not getting any variable here. Now, if I want to delete the row from my table, so I can select this section, delete row from data table, and I will select the variable name and the row index. For example, I want to remove the data from a first index. Okay, I will give the index 1 and I will click on save. So again, let me show you the index. So these are the row number or the row index. You can see 0, 1. So we have given 1, so it will delete this row. Let me close this and let me run the flow. You can see now we have only one row. The second row has been deleted. For example, if we have this data table and we want to update the data, means we want to update the marks of zone. Okay, so what we can do is we can use update data table item action, and here I will select the data table name, student table, and the column name, marks. I will give the name of the column marks, and row is 0, and new value, the new value of the marks will be 100. Okay, I will click on save. I have disabled this delete action, so it will not delete the row, and let me run the flow. Okay, our flow is completed. Let me go to table again, and here you can see the marks of the zone as updated successfully, 100. Earlier it was 98. Okay, now I want to check whether one of the student have age 19, or I want to check whether my table contains a name John, or my table contains a particular value. I want to find something, and I want to replace that with some another value, means if the name is for example, I have given a incorrect spelling of John, so I want to replace it with the correct spelling, or if I have given something wrong, I want to replace that. So what I can do is I can use the find or replace in data table, and I will select the data table, and here we need to select the mode, find or find and replace. If I want to find only, I will select this find. So if you want to find or replace the text in all the matches, for example, if I search for 100 and there are 5 cells or the 5 fields in which we have value 100. So if you want to replace that 100 in all the 5 cells, you can select this all matches, and if you want to just replace that 100 in the very first result, means as soon as it gets 100 in the first field, it will replace that and it will end the search. So in that case, you can close this or off this option. Now what I want to find is I want to find 100, and also you can give the regular expression here. You can, if you want to give, if your text is a regular expression, you can turn this on, and if it is not a regular expression, you can turn this off. And if you want to search, if you want to do a case sensitive search, you can turn this on, match case, otherwise let it be. And match entire cell content, you can means if you want to match entire cell content, means if, for example, if your cell contains 1000, so that 1000 in the 1000 also contains 100, means that if we have this value 1000 and we are searching for 100, so this cell contains 100 also. So if you want to do that type of search, means whether it contains the 100 or if it is equals to 100. So there are two type of scenarios. If you want to match entire cell content, then turn this on, means it will check for 100. If it contains 1000, then it will not if it will not entertain that value. And if you want to do a contain, if you want to check whether cell contains 100, then you can turn this off and search by everywhere on columns, whatever you want to select, you can give. I want to select everywhere, and it will give us a variable data table matches. So, okay, let me run this, and we are getting this data table matches. We can see in the column 2 and row index is 0. We have this value. So let me go to the table, row index 0 and column 2, 0, 1, 2. Our columns have has also indexes. As we have indexes for rows 0, 1, similarly we have indexes for columns 0, 1, 2. So in our second column and 0th, so we have this 100 in our row index 0 and column index 2, which we get in this data table matches. Okay, so this is how you can find or replace a particular text. Just find and like this, find and replace, and here you need to give the value with which you want to replace. For example, I want to replace it with 200. I will click on save and I will run this, and this data table matches, it will also returns a table. You can see the 100 has been replaced by 200. Okay, now as we have created this data table with the 3 columns, and after some processing, or in the beginning of my in the middle of my flow, I want to add one more column. I need one more column. So what I can do is I can use this action, insert column into data table. Let me give the name of the data table, which is student table, and into location again. If you want to add the column at the end of the data table, you can select this. Otherwise, you can add the column at a particular index. So you can give the column name which you want to add. I want to add a new column, and the name of the column will be the roll number, and the column index I will give 3, or I will give 1. It will add the column index before index 1. I will click on save, and let me disable these actions and run the flow. Now it will add one new column into our data table at index before index 1. Here you can see now we have 4 columns, and the roll number has been added at index 1. The index of the name will be 0, 1, 2. Delete column from data table. As we inserted the column, now we can delete the column as well. I will select the data table, specify column with name or index. If you want to delete a column and you know the name of the column, you can select this name. And if you don't know the column name, you want to delete a column from a particular index. For example, I want to delete the last column. Doesn't matter what is the name of the column. So I will select this, specify column with index, and column index is 3. So it will delete the column from the last index. Now it should give only three columns. Now we are getting one error because the column index is out of range. We have given index 3, but our table contains only uh, 3 columns and the index of the last column is 2. We don't have any column at index 3 because earlier we were adding a column into our data table in line number 5. So that's why we have total 4 columns and the column index of the last column was 3. But we have disabled this section, so we are not adding any column. And in our table, we have only 3 columns. So the index of the last column is 2. So we need to give either 0, 1 or 2. Okay, so I have given 2. Now it should pass. And here we go. Now we can see we have left with only 2 columns. The last column has been deleted. It shows marks column. Oh, similarly, if you want to delete blank rows from your table, you can use this section. Delete empty rows from data table. Just you need to select your data table and click on save, and it will delete the empty rows from your data table. So let me go to the data table and add some empty rows. So it has added some empty rows. Okay, let me click on save. Now we have 5 rows and 2 are empty. Now it should delete those 2 rows. And here we go. Now we can see we have only 3 rows. Those 2 empty rows are deleted. Similarly, if you want to delete the duplicate rows, you can select this section and it will delete the rows in which we have duplicate data. So let me add some duplicate data in my table. And also guys, if you don't want to hard code the value and you want to select a variable, you can select the variable also. For example, if you have stored the marks of Peter in a variable, so you can give the variable there. Let me run the flow and it should delete the duplicate row. And there we go, we can see 3 rows. The empty row has deleted and the duplicate row for Peter has been deleted successfully. Now the next action is clear data table. If you want to clear all the data of the data table, you can select this action. Just select your data table name. At the end you will get an empty table. You can select, see, you have 0 rows. It has created all the data from the data table. Now if I want to sort the data of my data table, so I will select this sort data table action and I will give the name of the table and the name of the column on which I want to apply sorting. For example, I want to apply sorting on the column and I know the name of that column, so I will select name in this well, you can see 2 values, name and index for this specified column with argument. And as I know the name of the column, so I have selected this name and the column name will be age. And order, I want to sort this in the ascending order only. You can select the descending also. Let me disable this clear data table action so that we can see the sorted data. And we can see it here. The data is sorted by age: Peter, John, Mark. And after sorting or after updating the data, if you are modifying the data by any chance, so it will update the row index also. Earlier this earlier this row Peter, this has row index 1. Now the index has changed to 0 because the position of the this row has changed. Okay, the next one is filter data table. As its name suggests, we can apply a filter on it. Filter to apply, you can click on edit And here you can give the conditions. For example, I want to apply a filter, means if the column name, which is the column name is age, and if it is greater than 20, if it is greater than 19, so this is the filter I want to apply, means show me the data if the age is greater than 19. So this filter is really useful. For example, if you are reading an Excel table and you are getting thousands of rows, but you need data for a specific criteria, so then you can apply the filter for that criteria and it will give you the data. Okay. So now we will get the data in which the age is greater than 19, and you can apply multiple conditions. Means you can click on this plus icon and you can add multiple conditions. Means if the marks are greater than this, if the name is equals to this, like that, you can give the conditions, and we will get the filter data into a new data table, which is filter data table. And if you want to use the same variable to save the output of the filter data table action, you can rename this or you can select that variable, the same variable which is student table. So let me run the flow, and we can see we have only two records and both records have age greater than 19. But our initial table has five rows, one is blank and one is duplicate. So we are removing the blank row and we are removing the duplicate row. Still we should get this Peter 1972, but we have applied that filter. So we are not getting this Peter because the age is less than 19, because age is not greater than 9. Alright. The next action is merge data table. So if you have multiple data table and you want to merge those, you can use this action. First data table, second data table, and merge mode. You need to select the merge mode, means in case if the columns are different in both the tables, so you can use this merge mode. You can select whether you want to add those extra columns. So for example, in our first data table we have 3 columns, and in our second data table we have 4 columns. So now if you want to add that fourth extra column of second data table, then you can select this add extra columns, and if you want to ignore that, you can select this. And if you want to apply a validation check, means if there is any extra column, then throw an error, so you can select this, and it will merge the data of both the data tables, and it will give the error if there is any extra column in any of the data table. Means a data table could contain extra column and second data table can also contain extra column, then it will throw the error. All right. And if you want to join two data table, so merge and join both are different, because in merge data table we are just merging two data tables, but merging means if we have one data table and it contains, means if we have two data tables of student, one is for BCA student, another one is for MCA student. So if you want to merge the data of both the data table, you can use merge data table action. But if you want to join the data table, if you want to join two data table, you can use this, and it will join two data table based on the specific join rules. If you are aware of SQL, then you should then you will be aware of this joining. So here you can select the first data table, then you can select the second data table, and here you need to apply the type of the join, inner join, left join, full join. So whatever join you want to apply, you can select that, and here you can add the join rules, means you can apply conditions whether the roll number of the student is equal to roll number of the student in another table, whether the employee ID of the employee is equal to the employee ID of the employee. Means if you want to apply some specific condition on both the tables, you can use this. And at the end, it will give you a new data table, join data table. And you can rename this or you can use any existing data table as well. In upcoming videos, we are going to see the practical use of all these actions. The next one is convert data table to text. So for example, if I have a data table and I want to convert this into a text, generally it will create a CSV text, means comma separated text, comma separated value. So here you need to select that data table name, which is student table, and in advanced you can see include column names if you want to include the headers. So you can turn this on and use custom column separators. By default it will separate it by the comma, and if you need a custom column separator, you can turn this on and you can input your separator. So it will produce one new variable, which is CSV text. Okay, so let me click on save, convert data, and let me disable all these actions. And in my data table, I will add some more data, and let me run the flow. And here we go. You can see this CSV text. It contains this type of text. In first column, in first row, we can see the first column or the header. And in second row, we can see the value of the second row, then third row, fourth row, like this. Columns are separated by comma, you can see, and rows are separated by new line. If you want to change this separator, comma, you can use that option. You can apply that separator here. Use custom column separator and give that value. For example, if I give asterisk and let me run the flow again. And here we go, we can see these values are separated by asterisk. So you can use your custom separator as well. And read from CSV text variable. So like we have created this CSV text variable. Now if you want to read the data from this, you can select this CSV text variable and you can perform the same settings. Like if you want to trim the fields, and the first line contains the header names, and get CSV field as text, column separator predefined or custom, because we have selected the custom separator. So you can select the custom and give the separator here. And if it is predefined, that means it will select that comma or system default. You can also select the comma semicolon tab from here as well. And it will give us a data table. So in convert data table to text, we are converting the data table to a text variable, and in read from CSV text variable, we are reading that data. Means we will read the data from this CSV text variable and we will create a new data table. Lastly, let's cover one of the most common scenarios, looping through our data table. If you need to perform actions on every row of data table, use the for each loops. In previous video, we have covered this concept of loops. You can check that. For each loop, for example, I have this loop. For example, I have this data table and I want to loop through the loop through all the data of the data table. I will use this student table, and we will get the data into current item, and this current item will be a data row. Okay, and in this we can print, or we can perform any action on that data. We have this current item. Let me click on save and disable these actions, and let me run this. See, in first iteration we are getting the data of the first row, which is John 2098, and this current item is the data row, or we can say it is a kind of list. We are getting the data of the next row, and if you want to get the name, age, or something, you can use the index. Hence you can go to this current, and here you can give the index. So now this will give the name of the students. See, we are getting name because at 0th index we have name. To wrap things up, data table in Power Automation Desktop are a great way to handle and manipulate structured data within your automation workflows. We have covered all the actions of data table. I hope this helps you unlock the full potential of Power Automate Desktop when working with data. If you found this video useful, make sure to hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.